Never underestimate the evil of human nature. Even the biological father of a child may murder his own child. At 3:30 p.m. on November 2, 2020, residents in a community in Chongqing, China, suddenly heard someone screaming that a child had fallen from the building. People saw two young bodies on the ground. One was a 2-year-old girl and the other was a 1-year-old boy. The girl's body was severely twisted and deformed, and her face was unrecognizable. The ground was covered with her blood, and the boy was still breathing, but he was dying. Witnesses said that only a loud noise was heard at the time of the incident, and it was speculated that the two fell from a height. A man in pajamas ran over, knelt on the ground and cried bitterly, and kept beating himself while crying. He was the children's father, Zhang Bo. When the accident happened, the child's mother, Chen Meilin, was at work. When she received the call, she froze in place for a moment, and then she ran to the scene frantically. The ambulance arrived quickly, but the girl had died on the spot. Although the boy was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment, he still died the next day. In the hospital, Zhang held his head with both hands. Chen lost control of her emotions and rushed forward to ask Zhang why he didn't take good care of the child, but Zhang just kept blaming himself. Zhang said that he was taking medicine for a cold and resting in his room when the incident happened. He accidentally fell asleep and only realized that the children were missing when he heard screams downstairs. The two young children fell from the bay window of the room on the 15th floor, and this bay window was not equipped with a guardrail. The tragedy did not attract much attention at first, and people around them expressed deep sympathy for them. Losing all two children is a devastating blow to any family. Although it was their negligence that led to the accident. As parents, they have an unshirkable responsibility for the accident, especially the children's father. However, it was not until half a year later on July 16, 2021, that the fall from the building was widely spread in the online community. On this day, Chen posted a video on social media accusing her ex-husband Zhang of his crimes. She burst into tears in the video, revealing that the fall from the building was not an accident, but a terrible murder of two biological children carefully planned by Zhang and his girlfriend Yi Qingchen. The incident spread rapidly on the internet in an instant, and people were shocked and angry at the evil of the child's father. In fact, on the 9th day after the accident, the child's father Zhang, the man who cried and screamed at the scene of the incident, had been criminally detained by the police. He was suspected of deliberately killing his own children, and his girlfriend Yi was also arrested. Chen and Zhang have divorced. The girl lives with her mother, and the boy is temporarily raised by his father. After the fall, Chen had more and more doubts. The day before the incident, Zhang asked Chen to send the little girl to his house to reunite with her brother. In Zhang's home, the bay window in the room is about 40 centimeters from the ground, and the window is about 80 centimeters from the ground. The bay window was originally equipped with a 1-meter-high metal guardrail, but it was removed by Zhang Bo before the incident. At the time of the incident, Zhang's mother went downstairs to play mahjong, while Zhang, who was supposed to be working in the company, stayed at home. Chen recalled that the girl never dared to climb up the window by herself, and the boy was still young and could not climb up the bay window alone. What made her more suspicious was that Zhang's statement was inconsistent. At first he told Chen that he was resting in the bedroom because of a cold, but later he told the police that he was in the living room at the time. After a simple investigation, the police determined in a very short time that the child's father was the cold-blooded murderer. Zhang's cruel treatment of his child shocked and angered everyone. Zhang was born in 1994 in an ordinary rural family in Chongqing. His family was not well off. His father died a few years ago, leaving Zhang and his mother to live a difficult life. He is the only son in the family, with an older sister. Due to limited family conditions, he did not continue his studies after graduating from elementary school and entered society early. At the time of the crime, he had been struggling in society for more than 10 years. After his father died, his mother moved to the city with Zhang. In 2017, Zhang met Chen, who was 3 years older than him, in the company where he worked. Chen's family conditions were good, and both his parents were intellectuals engaged in scientific research. Chen himself also graduated from college. In comparison, Zhang's academic qualifications and family background were much inferior. When they first met, Chen did not have any special feelings for Zhang, and felt that his clothes and manners were not very decent. Despite this, Zhang was 1.8 meters tall, good-looking, and talkative, so Chen gradually became familiar with him. They were both working as salesmen in a loan company at the time. Zhang would pick up and drop off Chen to and from get off work every day, accompany her to work overtime, and even help her find clients and organize materials. Although he was not well educated, he gradually moved Chen with his attentiveness and patience. 3 months later, Chen found out that she was pregnant. At that time, her career was on the rise, and she was hesitant about whether to keep the child. However, Zhang firmly stated that whether she chose to have the child or not, he would respect her decision, but if she decided to have the child, he would work hard to make money to support the family and protect them for the rest of his life. Chen was moved and agreed to marry Zhang and have a child. On August 17, 2017, they got married. In fact, Chen's mother opposed her daughter and Zhang from the beginning. Zhang's family background was not good, and his family still owed a lot of debts. He dressed in an exaggerated way and looked like an unreliable gangster. Chen was gentle and considerate, and had a strong sense of family. Chen's mother thought they were not a good match. Although Zhang's conditions were not good, Chen's parents did not make things difficult for Zhang in the end. They just wanted their daughter to be happy. When they got married, the Chen family also subsidized a lot of money for the wedding banquet, and even the wedding ring was bought by Chen herself. Although the conditions were poor, he vowed in front of the Chen family that he would treat Chen well and take on family responsibilities. In this way, the two got married. However, this marriage that seemed to be combined for love ended in tragedy. After marriage, Chen moved into Zhang's 2-bedroom house. A male relative of Zhang lived in the living room of his house for a long time, which made Chen feel that life was very inconvenient. They often quarreled over various trivial matters. In March 2018, the birth of the girl made Chen Meiling very happy. She resigned from her job to take care of her daughter at home. At the same time, Zhang and his friends jointly opened a small loan company, began to socialize frequently, and became more vain. In order to cater to Zhang's vanity, Chen even borrowed money from his mother and bought expensive gifts for him. A year later, the boy was born. Chen didn't want this child, but in the end, listening to the heartbeat in the B ultrasound, she chose to give birth to him. Although there were both sons and daughters in the family, Chen thought that life would develop in a happy direction, but Zhang's indifference gradually disappointed her. Especially when the child was sick and hospitalized, Zhang just went to the hospital to visit the child politely, acting very careless. Behind these family trivialities, the contradictions between Zhang and Chen deepened. Zhang did not take on the responsibility as a husband and father at all. Eventually, Chen had to face the reality that she could not change Zhang, nor could she save the marriage. To make matters worse, Zhang had an extramarital affair. His relationship with Yi Qingchen was made public, and the two declared a romantic relationship. At this time, Zhang already had 2 children. Moreover, although Yi knew that Zhang was married, she still chose to continue dating him. Yi's family was much better off than Chen's. Her family ran a food factory. Zhang hoped to live a new and wealthy life through Yi. Zhang's mind was no longer on the family. In April 2019, he filed for divorce from Chen. In February 2020, Zhang and Chen formally agreed to divorce. Chen had hoped to raise both children at the same time, but the pressure of reality forced her to compromise. In the end, they decided that the girl would be raised by Chen, and the boy would be taken care of by Zhang before the age of 6 and raised by Chen after the age of 6. Zhang promised to pay $100,000 in child support, but until the children had an accident, he only paid $4,000. Chen never thought that the marriage she had put so much effort into would eventually bring her such a huge tragedy. Chen's efforts and patience not only did not bring a happy ending, but also the breakdown of the marriage relationship. What made her even more sad was the tragedy of her 2 children. She underestimated the evil of human nature. Since Zhang divorced, his relationship with his new girlfriend Yi has also had problems. Yi could not accept the fact that Zhang had 2 children. According to the indictment of the Chongqing Municipal Procuratorate, Yi made it clear to Zhang that she would never continue to be with him unless Zhang had no children. This request sounds quite absurd, because Zhang already has children, which is an unchangeable fact. Logically speaking, the custody arrangement of the two children should not cause trouble to Yi. However, some evil deep in human nature is difficult to explain rationally. Yi's true inner thought is that only when the two children disappear completely can Zhang belong to her completely. Yi hates these two children. Even if the two children are eventually raised by Chen after the age of 6, she wants to make the two children disappear forever. Since Zhang Bo divorced in February 2020, Yi has urged him to take action to eliminate the two children through face-to-face discussions and WeChat chats. They had planned two plans. One was to let the children fall from a high altitude, and the other was to create a car accident, put the children in the car, and then drive the car into the river. But because the latter was more risky and Zhang himself might be in danger, the two finally chose the first way. During that time, Zhang and Yi's mobile search engines had many search records related to children falling from a building. However, despite the plan, Zhang never dared to start. Yi's patience gradually ran out, and the two quarreled and even broke up. In September 2020, Zhang took the initiative to reconcile, but Yi did not give in. Instead, she made it clear that if Zhang did not solve the children's problems, they would not be able to be together. Since October, Zhang tried 3 times to get Chen to bring the girl to his home under different excuses so that he could get rid of both children at the same time. On October 25, Zhang asked his mother to contact Chen on the pretext of buying clothes for his daughter. Chen's mother felt something was wrong and warned her daughter to always accompany the child. That day, Zhang failed to find an opportunity to do it. On November 1st, Zhang contacted Chen again and asked his daughter to stay overnight at home. Although this request was suspicious, Chen hoped that the two siblings would spend more time together and finally agreed. On November 2nd, Zhang did not go to the company, but chose to stay at home. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon of that day, Zhang's mother went out to play mahjong, and he urged Zhang to do it through a video call. However, Zhang was still hesitant. In order to force him to act, Yi cut her wrist with a knife in the video and threatened Zhang, "If you can't do it, then let's stop here." Zhang saw the blood and suddenly had an evil idea in his mind. He finally made up his mind, picked up the two children, and threw them out of the window on the 15th floor. After the death of her child, Chen fell into deep grief. She locked herself in her room all day, remained silent, could not eat, and could not sleep. In a week, she lost 10 kilograms. Her mother saw this and felt distressed, and became more and more convinced that this tragedy was not an accident, but was done intentionally by Zhang. During the police investigation, Zhang said that he was blinded by love at the time. Shortly after the incident, the police used technical means to recover more than 17,000 WeChat chat records between Zhang and Yi, which detailed how they planned and premeditated to kill the two children. At the same time, during the on-site inspection, the police found that there were no fingerprints of the children on the windowsill, proving that they could not have climbed up by themselves. Especially the little boy who was only 1.5 years old, he had no ability to climb up the windowsill, and his sister did not have enough strength to carry him up. Although they created the illusion that the child fell from the building accidentally, and even Zhang pretended to be heartbroken in front of the onlookers, modern criminal investigation methods soon exposed their disguise. On November 10, 9 days after the accident, Zhang and Yi were arrested by the police, and they soon had to admit their crimes. After the two children suffered misfortune, Chen did not hear any apology from Zhang and his family. Yi's family offered $40,000 in compensation in an attempt to gain Chen's forgiveness, but Chen rejected this absurd proposal. In court, Chen decided to withdraw the civil lawsuit and publicly demanded that Zhang and Yi be dealt with strictly. On December 28, 2021, the court made a first-instance judgment and sentenced the two to death. However, Zhang and Yi were not reconciled and immediately appealed. After being sentenced to death, Zhang Bo suddenly showed remorse and wrote 4 letters to Chen in succession to express his inner regret and self-blame. But Chen was very sober about this. She knew very well that from the death of the children to the first-instance judgment, Zhang and Yi had never expressed any apology in the more than a year. It was not until his life was in danger that Zhang wrote to her. Obviously, this was not from the heart, but to escape legal sanctions and to survive. In her reply, Chen bluntly stated that if he and Yi wanted to atone for their sins, the best way was to accept the verdict of the law and accept the death penalty calmly. On April 6, 2023, Chen finally waited for the second trial. However, to her surprise, Zhang chose to change his confession in court. He claimed that although he had discussed the plan to kill the children with Yi, he did not actually do it, and the children fell from the building accidentally. He even accused the police of torturing him and coercing him to confess guilty. At the same time, Yi also tried to shirk responsibility, claiming that she had mental problems. She hired a lawyer to defend her, and her lawyer took out the family's history of mental illness to try to exonerate her. Chen worked hard to maintain the first instance verdict. She accepted interviews from many media outlets, repeatedly uncovered the unhealed scars in her heart, and told the media about the specific process of the case to attract public attention. For her, the only goal is to make Zhang and Yi pay the price they deserve for their crimes. She said that if the second trial overturned the death sentence of the first trial, she would definitely appeal to the end, and she had made all preparations for the appeal. However, justice finally came. On the morning of May 11, 2023, the Chongqing Municipal Court publicly pronounced the second instance of the appeal of Zhang Bo and Yi Qingchen for intentional homicide, rejected the defendant's appeal, upheld the original verdict, and the two were still sentenced to death. In January 2024, the Supreme People's Court of China made a ruling to approve the death penalty for Zhang and Yi. On January 31, 2024, the Chongqing Municipal Court executed Zhang and Yi in accordance with the execution order issued by the Supreme Court. Justice was finally served, the murderer was severely punished, the devil went to hell, but the lives of the two children were gone forever. Zhang and Yi, two extremely selfish people, killed two young lives for the so-called love. Their combination seemed to be a perfect match of evil. However, when they faced legal sanctions, they blamed each other and tried to clear themselves of their crimes. Zhang said that he did this because he was threatened by Yi. If he had not taken the initiative to propose, he would not have wanted to kill his children. Yi said that she did not love Zhang at all, and it was Zhang who pestered him so much that he agreed to be with her. She did not intend to kill the two children, but just wanted Zhang Bo to give up and leave her. Unexpectedly, he actually put it into action. Looking back on this chilling love story, Ye's lies seemed full of loopholes. She once threatened to cut her wrists to force Zhang to make up his mind. The reason why her parents could not accept Zhang having a child was also completely fictitious. In fact, according to Ye's family, they did not know about her relationship with Zhang until after the incident. Chen said in an interview that Zhang had been procrastinating and unwilling to do this thing. Maybe he did not want to kill their two children, but he loved the woman too much. Yi had been urging him frantically, and he was forced to do this by her. It was Yi who had been leading this matter. The two young children, who were only 1 and 2 years old, faced their father's fatal push. How terrified must they be? However, Zhang, the man called father, pushed them into the abyss cruelly. To this day, Chen, the mother of the children, still misses her two children all the time. Every time she goes out, she subconsciously says to the empty house, "Babies, I'm going out." For this mother, fate is too cruel. What do you think of this sad story? Welcome to like and comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.